Welcome back, Mistakes listeners. This is Dave, and I'm very glad to have you guys back. I thought that this intro would be a little bit different than the norm because I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you guys today just kind of talking about what I think parenting mistakes is about and where we're going. This is obviously episode 38, and we recorded this on November 17, 2015. See, I just got some of the business done. But I wanted to talk about an equation that I feel like we've been coming up with here at Parenting Mistakes that we just haven't had before. And quite simply, this equation, I think, for Todd and I has been content plus the time or the amount viewed and whatever result that might be. It could be a positive result, a negative result, kind of maybe an even result. But at the end of the day, hopefully that result is something that is good for everybody involved. So I wanted to get into some of the categories that we talked about. Again, with content, we're kind of narrowing this field down for both Todd and I. Todd and I. When it comes to a show that we're watching, it usually sits down into three different categories. We have an entertainment category, strictly fun viewing, kind of an escape. We actually have like an edifying or an educational category as far as content is concerned. Basically, you're kind of pulling something from the content, or it actually is a little bit uplifting, or your kids could actually think and chew on the content or the show. And as Todd is favorable to say, or he likes to say, when a show is really kind of impacting him wrong, it's just dumb. And this is just, what I like to call blank space content, or maybe even have a negative effect on kids. Of course, we've talked about time, so here's this equation again, content plus time. Time is always going to come down to what you as parents think is the right amount of time for kids to be watching. Now, Todd and I have mentioned in episodes before that the government has stated that no more than 2 hours a day of screen time. I think Todd himself has basically said for younger kids, and his kids, it was probably like half an hour to even no more than say an hour. For us, we've kept it down to about a 2 hour minimum. And of course, the result of those two equations is what is the effect it has on your child. Is when you factor in these equations, like so a particular show with the amount of time watched, what is the end result for that child? Or heck, what's the end result for you with that child? Is the kid like going crazy? Is he saying or she saying things that they shouldn't be saying? Or are there behaviors that are unusual? Or even better, or positive on that, is that are they walking away? Are they learning things about the world? Are they talking about animals that they've never seen before? Or are they spelling things that you had no part of, like teaching them? Like they're spelling the word apple and you haven't taught them the word apple. I think that is the equation that we're trying to work out here at Parenting Mistakes. Is we're trying to help you guys navigate this scenario. And I think as you listen to our show and watch some of the shows that we are watching, you're going to begin to piece together kind of a theme for yourself. How much can your child take of, say, just strictly entertainment content? Does it make your child more excitable? Does it make your child less engaging, let's say? What happens to a child in your house that basically watches content that's just not edifying? I mean, I think I could kind of fill in the blank space here, but I think the equation is different for every single family. I think that one of the new themes that Todd and I have come across is just basically saying, hey, this is entertainment content, but it's just a show that, there's a lot of fighting. It's a superhero action show, and it's just a lot of fighting. And say you've got a 2 hour time limit for your child, and he just watches 2 hours of, say, entertaining action punch 'em beat 'em up show. The result might not be so positive, but maybe mixing that up with maybe a more edifying show, a show that demonstrates a higher moral presence, along with, say, just a strictly entertainment show. I mean, I think always for us, for me in particular, it's always the end goal in sight. You know, what do these kids, what do we want them to be watching on their own as time goes on? We want them to make really good media choices in the future. And I think it all starts here. It all starts with basically having a discussion with them while watching these shows, watching the shows yourself. And as I've started to do, even myself, I've started to watch a lot of these shows, and sometimes I find them very boring. But I find that I find it's edifying in that I can have a good discussion with my children after the show is over. Here, but I want to be clear that we at Parenting Mistakes haven't completely figured this out, and this is just a rudimentary formula that we've come up with. But it's something that we're going to continue to pursue. Now, I have to say, at this point, it's just theory, and as Todd would say, that's science. So it's not an exact science for sure. But also here at Parenting Mistakes, we want you to be entertained, and we want you to sit and just hear our perspective on some of these shows. And maybe there are folks out there that have changed their perspective because of our perspective. Who knows? Again, we're your guardians. As you know, you can follow us on Twitter at Parent Mistakes. You can also like us on Facebook at Parenting Mistakes. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Okay, so this time we watched VeggieTales in the house.
Yes, that's the entire series name, right?
No, it used to just be VeggieTales.
Right.
Now
it's
like
but this
VeggieTales
is
in the house.
Right.
Yes.
So that's like this is the new series of VeggieTales.
Did you? Well, let's see. Okay, so we established this again last time. We've reminded our listeners of this every once in a while. I have older kids. You have younger kids, and so we watched VeggieTales. My kids watched VeggieTales back in the day. Did your kids ever watch VeggieTales?
Not really. Not really.
I want to say VeggieTales were popular maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, I would say that's certainly much more Emma's deal, Junior Asparagus type stuff.
Yeah. So in the old series, they were sort of restricted to the counter, which they still are sort of restricted to the counter because they're in the kitchen. But now they've got these strange little dwelling places throughout the house.
Sure. Is it in? That all took place in a house?
Yeah, it's like attached to couches. It's sort of strange that way. Anyway. Okay. The setup is not necessarily as important, but this is a show that is based around talking vegetables, and the main characters are Bob the Tomato and Larry the Cucumber.
Right. And
this show has actually been around for quite a while. This is sort of a reboot or a reimagining of the show.
Sure, it's got a visual update as well.
Yeah, the prior show was not necessarily episodic. Is that a word? Episodic?
Sure. I don't think it was. I actually think VeggieTales is kind of groundbreaking too. Like they embraced computer animation long before a lot of other folks did.
Yeah, and when it originally was popular in the early '90s when it came out, it was distinctly Christian.
Yes. Bible
verses, and there's scripture and everything, and a very distinct moral.
Sure, and they would kind of C.S. Lewis things a little bit, like take familiar parables and just kind of make it more VeggieTale-esque. Sort of like when you read the Chronicles of Narnia and you're like, oh, I can see the symbolism here, or I can see that they're playing out the Christ story. And VeggieTales does that as well. But it's kind of like their version of it, though.
Yes. So, give me your initial impression of this. Inspiring, I can tell.
Yeah. Just trying to review some of the show in my mind. You'll have to forgive me. It is Larry the Cucumber. Right?
Yes.
And in this particular show, he had an opportunity to basically become an ice cream, what do they call it? Like an ice cream dervish or something?
He is given the opportunity to drive Paw Grape's ice cream cart.
Right. So
he gets to serve excited about
ice cream to the general population.
which
So,
apparently has been a dream of his. And there is a secondary character, which is a strip of bacon.
Bacon. What was it? Bacon Bob.
Is it Bob Bacon?
Yeah, I think it was
Bacon Bill.
Bacon Bill. Thank you.
Bacon Bill. Bacon Bill looks up to Larry the Cucumber, apparently.
Yep.
And which is nice and all, except that Larry does not necessarily want to have Bacon Bill around. He sort of wants to run the ice cream cart himself, and Bacon Bill also wants to help out and run the ice cream cart, and conflict ensues.
Right.
Which causes Bacon Bill to go off by himself, and Larry is sort of has his friends sort of share with him the error of his ways, and he goes and sort of reconciles with Bacon Bill, and then they all live happily ever after, sort of.
Yeah. It's a little more complicated than that.
I know it's a little more complicated than that, but
yeah, that's the general premise of the episode. Episode. See, I'm having a hard time talking tonight. Yeah.
That's right.
Um,
And then the second one, you have
a superhero.
Larry Boy. Yeah, Larry the Cucumber also plays this alter ego Larry Boy, which is sort of a
superhero take.
Well, it's sort of a Batman type of thing, but he saves a character which turns out to be sort of, again, a Clint Eastwood, get off my lawn, grumpy character. And then that grumpy character is not happy with being saved and tells Larry not to save him anymore. And then the bad guys come and pick on the old man.
Well, Larry doesn't understand why he should be saving somebody that's so ungrateful.
Correct, because he doesn't say thank you or anything like that.
So he tells the Clint Eastwood character, hey, you know what? I'm not going to save you anymore. And
right.
That's when the villains decide, oh, well, now we can capture you because Larry Boy won't save you.
Right. So, and then eventually, after the bad guys are picking on Clint Eastwood, I keep calling him Clint Eastwood.
Works for me.
That's right. Larry is again encouraged by his friends to go help somebody, even though he is grumpy and ungrateful.
Yes.
And he does, and everybody again.
The idea is, right,
yeah,
exactly. He's undeserving to be saved, right?
I get the impression that this show did not inspire you.
I wish it did. Well, yeah, I just I don't have a whole lot of feedback for this particular show. I'm kind of looking to you.
Okay.
Because to me, there's a couple of things that I could totally kind of dig into, but it is kind of straightforward, is what it is, and can I say it's heavy? Dare I say it was heavy-handed with its message, and nothing in life is ever that clean? But do I really want to be that critical of this show that seems really benign and actually does have a good message? I mean, we've been here before.
Correct.
So, like, it's a good message. Was I totally intrigued? Was it entertaining? How about this? These two episodes I did watch with my 3-year-old, and she was delighted by them.
Okay.
She really had a good time watching them. I mean, if there's any, say, recommendation I can give, Maddie loved them, right? Found them interesting, entertaining. I do find the animation, and I kind of steer clear of this, but I find the animation soothing, right? It's not aggressive. So again, it's not this SpongeBob SquarePants type deal, right? And I feel, okay, how about this? I feel good as a parent when watching these shows.
Okay.
So there you go.
Which is a good thing.
And like I said, I've told you in the past that I wanted to have my kids watch some of the shows with me, and like I said, she was delighted. She sat there the entire time with me. She didn't walk away. She was interested, entertained.
I think what's interesting about this is, and I'm rolling this around in my mind, sort of saying, what do I want from this particular show, and shows in general? We've talked about this before. Do we expect kids programming to be, again, my word, edifying, educational, beneficial? Can it just be killing 23 minutes Is that okay? We certainly kill time entertaining ourselves with stuff that is not educational.
Sure.
So that's fine. The interesting angle with this show is that because of its Christian roots, I can tell you that the message feels like it's been sanitized a little bit. They have the little thing at the end where they say, God made you special and he loves you very much. That is a overtly Christian message, which is going to speak to a particular audience.
It could speak to a Muslim audience.
It could. And
I just, you know what I'm saying? Like, it could
no, I know.
speak to...
I know what you're saying. But all the rest of the stuff that was on the show in the past is gone. In terms of, like, they used to read Bible passages on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's been replaced with sort of a generic
precious
idea
moments type, you know. Yeah.
It's sort of like what philosophers would refer to as virtue ethics.
Yes.
Doing the right thing, doing something because it's the right thing, doing something because it's honest or fair or just or what have you. Which again is fine if we were watching a show on the Cartoon Network or on Nickelodeon or the Disney Channel or something that was preaching honesty and fairness and that sort of thing. We'd probably be applauding it for doing that. It's just an interesting sort of dilemma of saying, okay, because of where this show came from and because the original creators are still involved with it, did they sort of sell out a little bit in order to, you know, sort of get on the cultural mainstream here? I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's an interesting sort of philosophical question. To your point, it's a nice clean show, and it does have a message. They both had a message.
Yep.
And the message was, you know, basically about doing, as I mentioned, doing things right regardless of whether or not you have to or not.
Right.
It's sort of the, you know, the good behavior even though you're not going to get a reward, even though you're not going to be thanked, even though nobody's watching. And that's a good thing. So, but I will share with, you know, I share your sort of, I don't know, it was a little meh to watch.
Right.
It's just kind of there.
Yeah, so I take it to Maddie at this point. If Maddie could review something with us, I think Maddie would give it all out of praise. Oh, I really liked it, Daddy. It was fun, or whatever. I think
Right.
she found it. How about this? I think she found it edifying.
Yes.
Now, what's weird is it to say that will Maddie go off and do the right thing based on what she watched? That's the weird part. Is like, is this so? It sits in a really weird spot. Is this educational viewing? Like, the veggies are doing the right thing in the face of the opportunity not to do the right thing. Like, so Larry in both scenarios, which I found intriguing, which was kind of lost, but Larry has an opportunity not to make the right decision.
Correct.
Right? And then he is convinced otherwise, and then he himself says, okay, I'm going to make the right decision.
And look at it this way. Would this line up with some of the ways that you'd want to parent?
Yes.
Because, you know, if your daughter comes home and says, hey, there's this kid at school and they kind of follow me around and they seem to like me and they're not like my favorite person ever.
So here you go.
Would you not, as a parent, maybe encourage them? You're probably more likely to encourage them to try to find ways to befriend the person, as opposed to saying, well, if you don't like them, just run around the building and
Yeah.
make sure they don't see you.
So let me get back to my point, which is, okay, at that point, do I pull out the VeggieTales and watch it with them? Right? Because that's the kind of impact, like, oh, well, she's had this experience at school with this friend, and do I use VeggieTales as a tool? No.
Not necessarily, but I guess it's always good in life when we can find materials that are going to reinforce what we would teach anyway.
You could use the Bible.
Well, that's fine.
I mean, if you just want to,
I'm just saying in terms of media.
yeah, exactly. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just think it's you're saying. Hey, it's lost some of its edge. I think it has lost some of its edge.
It probably
right?
has lost a little of its edge.
It's
trying to appeal to a broader audience, and maybe it does speak to a broader audience. Or sometimes when you try to speak to a broader audience, you end up speaking basically to nobody.
Yes, there you go.
Because you're trying to make everybody happy. And
right.
I don't know. I don't know whether this is still a show that lots of people like. I don't know if it is reaching new people. If it does, great. Good for it. But yeah, it's kind of interesting where they sort of it feels like they're trying to find a middle ground. Like they're trying to have a distinct message and follow a particular ideology and yet not be so in your face about it.
Yeah, and it's fire and forget viewing. I think you see the VeggieTales brand and you're like, I can feel okay about what my kids are watching.
Yes.
I mean, that's another aspect to it. Like, guaranteed, this is not like the Muppets that has suddenly changed.
Right.
On you.
It's
and
definitely adult.
Yeah. Now, it's still VeggieTales. It's just a little more saturated, but it's still the same quality content. Dare say quality, but it's still the content that you received before.
Yes. Is that about it?
I think that's it.
Okay. You can follow us online because we love social media.
Mm-hmm.
You can follow us on Twitter, Parent Mistakes. Please follow us. We'd love to have followers. Leave us comments. And you can like our Facebook page, Parenting Mistakes. It's there. It's got a green logo.
It does.
We've got a few followers. It's pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Give us feedback, positive or negative. Give us ideas for new shows. And that's about it.
Eat your vegetables.
Except not when they talk to you.